All right, folks, it is officially 5 after. I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to Rich Bellando, Applications Engineer for the Loudspeaker Solutions Group, and he's going to go ahead and get you started.
Thanks, Avery. Thanks, everyone, for joining our recent installment of programming your ALC using ArmoníaPlus. Make sure my mousey thing is working here. There we go. My name is Rich Bellando. I'm an application engineer with the Loudspeaker Solutions Group based in Chester. As unfortunately unpromised, we told you guys that this webinar was going to have no PowerPoint, but we're gonna go through some slides. I kind of lost that battle, unfortunately, but we'll keep it to a minimum. Most of the time we will spend in the software, showing you guys the ins and the outs of the basics. Goals for today's session. So yes, the basic networking settings and amplifier discovery for the ALCs. We will take a look in detail on how to update the firmware through ArmoníaPlus. Okay. We will look at the basic system design layout using the add link match method, simplified method just to get you up and running. We're going to show you what the option arrow means. On a lot of our calls, we tell people, click on the option arrow. Like, what's the option arrow? So we're going to show you what the option arrow is. We're going to understand and take a look at the inputs and the input priorities. One of the topics we get a lot is setting those correctly. This way your audio signal is routed. And then in conjunction with that, we are going to look at the output matrix as well. So basic, simple programming. We're not going to go too in deep. And then we will take a look, if we have some time, at some popular system design layouts. We'll try to get creative, we'll get fancy, show you some pretty pictures and fun stuff. All right, so I do have a handout attached to the webinar. It is the installation guide for the ALCs. That's downloaded from the web, but that is included as a handout. That does have some good information as well, a little more detail. But quick overview of the hardware, obviously, we'll take a look. So here we got the ALC 404, 404D, and 404AN. Just as a note, these are two separate models. So the Dante, which has analog inputs as well, and then the analog only models. Those analog only models will be going away. They are in the catalog, they are still in the marketplace, they are still out in the field, so we still have to support them. So we did include them in the webinar today. So you'll see a reference to the D, which is the Dante, and the AN, which is the analog, so both amplifier models. And we'll show you why that's important when we start matching these to amplifiers in the workspace. All right. So your 404D, 400 watts per channel, a lot of 70 volt options there. Great for multi-zone 70, 100 volt distributed loudspeaker systems. Next in line is the 1604D and the 1604AN. On paper, 1600 watts per channel. You look at the specs there, 1250 at 8 ohms, 1400 at 4 ohms, and 1600 at the 2 ohm rating. That's also your 70 volt, 100 volt rating, if you choose to use this amplifier in that fashion. 1604, great choice, bridging down to 2 channels, so high powered subwoofers, something that needs a healthy shot of 3200 watts at 4 ohms. This is where we can get that in a single rack space, okay? The big guy, 2 channel, the 3202, again, 3202D and the AN, similar, 1250 watts at 8 ohms, and then once we start getting down to the lower impedance, that's where we start seeing the power of this amplifier come to life. So 2400 watts at 4 ohms and then 3200 watts per channel at 2 ohms. And yes, you can bridge this down to a single mono channel, giving you a very healthy 6400 watts at 4 ohms. So, high power subwoofers, long cable runs, stuff where you need that power and that density in one rack space. So these are been very successful for us. They've helped us sell a lot of loudspeakers. They've helped a lot of systems come together very nicely, having the complete package. I'm going to show you guys the back panel. This is from an earlier webinar that we did, but there is some reference to this. A lot of times we get the first call saying, okay, I got a bunch of speakers. I got this amplifier. I've never used it before. I see some dip switch settings in the back. How do I set those to program the amplifier? Well, 99% of the time, 9 times out of 10, you're not going to touch any of those dip switches, okay? We can go into detail later on or in an off session on how some of those dip switches are used, but the majority of the systems that we're putting together, those dip switches pretty much leave in the down position. The only time where it becomes common is if we're doing 7100 volt systems. So there is a dip switch that you do have to put on the output channel to engage the 70-volt operation. All right. So ArmoníaPlus. ArmoníaPlus is the software suite not only for the ALCs, but it's the software suite for the entire PowerSoft library. Okay, so PowerSoft is the OEM provider of these amplifiers. Their system is basically controlled through this software. All right, so it's not our software. We kind of learn the workarounds to get it functioning correctly for our applications. And there's a couple of tips and tricks that we tailor specifically to the ALCs. All right. So before you get started, obviously, yes, you have to download ArmoníaPlus. Okay, and that's usually the first step when we get a call and the customer says, "Okay, got this amplifier. What do I do?" Well, you got to download the software. So the software easily available from us at the Biamp site, support that downloads. You can also get to it from the ALC product landing page. Okay. Once you have ArmoníaPlus installed, you do need to create a My PowerSoft account. Okay, so the My PowerSoft account goes through their website. It's a simple click, fill out some information for their marketing team. You get a link in your email, basically registering you, and now you're able to access the marketplace. What is the marketplace? Well, the marketplace is the spot where we put all the amplifier models, okay, so the specific models that need to be downloaded, and it's also where the loudspeaker library gets published. Okay, so you need access to that server, which we push the information to, in order to get that information loaded in order to program your ALCs. So another question we get all the time, first time users loading this, I'm not seeing any ALCs available to connect to. Well, that's because you haven't downloaded them. So yes, ArmoníaPlus will not recognize any of the ALC models. They won't be discoverable. You won't be able to network to them. They won't be programmable unless they're downloaded and installed into ArmoníaPlus. All right. So I'm going to show you how to do that, where to go for that in the software. Again, these slides we're just going to bang through real fast, get you guys situated. Network settings. Out of the box, ALCs want to be on a DHCP network. All right. So computer itself set to DHCP. If you open up your communication manager, and again, I'll show you where that is in the software, and you're seeing some weird IP addresses, you're not seeing some of the standardized 192 or 169 locals, we know that computer is not set to DHCP. Later on, if these amplifiers do need to be locked down on a secure network, you can set them to a static IP, but for initial programming, it is much easier just to leave your computer on DHCP, do all the programming, and then we can lock it down to a static IP. All right. And again, I'll show you that in the software as well. Firmware updates. Now, with 2.6, the new release of ArmoníaPlus, they've given us a little bit of a leeway. It used to be that if your firmware was not current, you could not connect to the amplifier. I believe it was one firmware prior to this. We could connect to one firmware prior as well. But before that, is if your Armonia, if your ALC was not up-to-date firmware, you could not connect to it. So this became an issue where people would go back out to site a year or two afterwards and they try to make an adjustment, and they opened up ArmoníaPlus and it says, hey, there's a new version available. And oh, sure, I'll update the new version. When they go back out on the site, that amplifier was tied to an older version of ArmoníaPlus. Okay, so now firmware needs to be updated so they match. Most of the programming, and we'll go through this again when I'm in the software, having an internet connection is key to getting this software suite working as best as possible. Without the internet connection, without being able to dial into the marketplace and being able to dial out to the server, it becomes a little difficult when we have to update amplifiers. Okay, so a lot of the times, again, people go out in the field, we recommend open up the amplifier in the shop, connect it to ArmoníaPlus, take a look at the firmware. If the firmware needs to be updated, do it in the shop where you have a secure internet connection. You're not up in a press box somewhere tethering to someone's iPhone and the bandwidth is, minimal. And then of course they call into tech support and we're doing a remote session and we're using that bandwidth as well. So it gets a little complicated. So yes, if at all possible, before you go out and install these in the rack, open them up in the shop, check the firmware, do all your programming. You can do all your programming in the shop too, and we can connect to them in-house and bring them out and they'll be good to go. So we'll show you some of that in the software as we continue here. All right. Another big one here. Which project do I choose? When you open up ArmoníaPlus for the first time, you're going to get this splash screen, okay? So you have a new live sound project, and you'll have a new project for installed systems. Now, in our marketplace, most of the stuff we're doing is an installed system. Unfortunately, in ArmoníaPlus, we are not going to choose a project for installs. Why is that? Well, again, this is PowerSoft suite that controls all of their amplifiers. It controls all of their OEM providers as well. For their products, they have a lot of control software. They have WM touches, they have wall panels, they have a web views app, they have system control app for Apple and Android. We unfortunately do not support any of those functions. Okay, so if we're going to do stuff like that, we're most likely going to be using a Tessera and all those other products that we have available in our wheelhouse. All right, so that basic install skin, it's basically their dynamic music distribution. That's where you can select and configure a bunch of analog and digital music sources. You can choose multiple types of controllers for the source. You can set zones, you can do level management. It gets a little confusing and you get a little more options that can kind of trip you up if you do the install system. So for ALCs, we are only going to use the new project for live sound. That is a must, okay? It's more simplified. You don't get the options for the zone and the controls and sharing and stuff like that. It can trip you up, and we've actually had projects where we've taken the customer's project, they're not getting signal. It's like, well, you created a install project and you started assigning sources. Okay, well, ALCs don't do that, so then we have to rewrite the program. Doesn't take very long to do, just a little bit of a headache. So we'll rewrite that in the live sound project and go from there. So ALC is your amplification, it's your FIR processing, your protective limiting and equalization, and then we're going to use Tessera and all those tools for your signal routing, distribution, management, and control. Okay, ArmoníaPlus. Let's go live into the software. Okay. Switch screens here. Hopefully you guys can see this. All right, so when you open up ArmoníaPlus, you're going to get this splash screen. And obviously this is what I showed you before. And we're not going to choose an install system. We are going to always choose a new project for live sounds. Now the DSP capabilities of the amplifier, again, the ALCs are basically OEM versions of the Duo and Quattro Canales. They don't have enough DSP processing to do the multi-zone configurations and assignments that's required in these as well. So that's the other reason why. If you are familiar with PowerSoft and you have used these applications before, you can absolutely apply ALC to those scenarios, but we're not going to support that, unfortunately. You'll be flying on your own on those. So for all intents and purposes, for the basic system, for ALC, we are going to use a new project for live sound. So we're going to hit new project and we're going to hit OK. All right, let's see if I can move this guy over. There we go. Okay, so big open space here. Where do I start? Well, the first step that we want to talk about was going to the marketplace. So we're going to go up to this A+ logo, and I have created my PowerSoft account. So I'm logged in. It says, welcome back, Richard. Okay, and we are going to go to more and then marketplace. So the marketplace is going to open up a giant library. And again, this is where we push all of our amp models, and this is where we push all of our speaker preset libraries too. So in the search box here, we used to type community, but now we're going to type Biamp. We're going to hit enter. And essentially, that's going to populate everything that we've pushed to the server. So we have our speaker preset library. Okay, this is version 9.1. Okay, so we do release these every once in a while, and these are pushes to the server that we do from Biamp to their server. These are the amplifier models. Now, again, like I said, the AN models, technically once the supply runs out of those, they're going to go away, but we still need to support them in the field, so they're not going to leave Armonia because you are going to run into them every once in a while. Why that's important? Because you can't connect a D to an AN or an AN to a D. When you load a virtual amp and connect to a physical amp, they have to match. So one has to be the D for the Dante, and one has to be the AN if it's strictly an AN version. All right. So these are your models. I already have them downloaded, obviously. If they were not downloaded, there'd be a link here to download them. And here's the last one, the AL4AN, ALC404AN. All right, so there's 6 amplifier models altogether, and then there's the loudspeaker preset library. All right, so that's your first step. Second step, we're going to look at our network configuration. So as I showed you before in the slides, bottom right-hand corner of the screen next to the British flag, there's this little gear icon. Click this icon here and you're going to see a communication manager pop up. All right, so this is basically showing all of the physical network options I have on the system that ArmoníaPlus can access. Okay, so this is the feed to our network here in the office, and this is just the feed here to my desk. All right, so they are DHCP, link local addresses. Now, a lot of times in the field, this is usually, again, one of the calls where we get where I can't connect, you know, I'm not seeing the amplifier. So we're going to jump ahead and show you on the match screen how to do that. I'm going to show you how these network ports work. If we are going to use Dante, we would select the Dante or AES67 tab on the network, and you can actually do your Dante assignments, your naming, and set some latency settings and stuff like that inside Harmonia as well. As far as the assignments, it's easier. I think it's easier just to do it in controller. So I'll show you guys that too when we're in there. So we are sort of going to jump ahead because I want to show you guys the networking. So I'm going to take this one off. So basically, I'm going to know that these are the amplifiers I have in my back rack room. Okay. Select that, hit apply, close this. And then when we do a typical layout, and we'll start from scratch again, we go add link match in that order. We're going to jump over to match. And you weren't supposed to see that, so I'm going to clear those. And I'll show my network port again. We have the 192 that's on. I'm going to hit apply, I'm going to hit close, and then we're going to hit discover. All right, so these are the amplifiers that I have available on that network. Okay. Now, just to show you guys, if I clear these all again, and I turn this one off, and I turn my local on, hit apply, okay, and hit discover, I'm only going to get the 144D that I have in my test track sitting at my desk to my right. Now, let's go back again, clear all, and let's go back to these guys because I'm going to show you how to update firmware. All right, hit apply, hit okay, discover. So one of the projects we're going to lay out later, I know I'm going to need a 1604D and a 404D. You notice how they're red. We're connected to the internet and the server. If not, these would not be red. So yes, important to have an internet connection. Like I said earlier, these will show up as being outdated. So it says here on the bottom, 3 devices have outdated firmware, click to upgrade. So if you click here, it takes you to the system list. Now this again populates the same thing that we saw in the match tab. Basically gives you the model number of the ALCs, it gives you the current firmware. Okay, 1.11.0.152 is the current firmware. That's the newest one. Okay, it gives you serial number and your IP address. So we're going to go ahead and update. I'm going to update this 404D. Now you can select them individually. Hold down Control, select that, or you can unclick them and you can go here in the select. And you can select all. Obviously, it won't update those because they're already current. Clear selection. You can select outdated. So that would choose all the ones that are outdated. For our purposes, we're going to unselect again. And I only want to update this 1604D and this 404D. So when I click those, this update button becomes active. Okay, if this update button isn't active, it's a couple indicators. We're not connected. We're not talking to the outside world. We're not talking to the server. These IP addresses, these firmware numbers wouldn't be red. That's another indicator that we're good, and the update button is active. Okay, so if that's not happening, there's something going on with our internet connection. We can resolve that. You know, usually try a different source, try a different Wi-Fi, something to get active on the network. So again, key indicators that we are active when we're talking firmwares will be red if they're not updated, and this update button becomes active. So again, we've selected the 1604D and we've selected the 404D. We are going to go ahead and hit update, and we'll run that in real time while we're doing the layout. So I'm going to update those, and you'll see that it's pulling the firmware from the server. Okay. Now, the nice thing about this, like I said, having an internet connection, once the current firmware is in the system, it'll stay there. So if you do happen to go out to an amplifier that you haven't serviced in a couple of years, you've upgraded to 2.6, you want to connect to that amplifier, ArmoníaPlus already has the firmware in there, you will be able to update it and connect the firmware that way as well. All right, so once it's in the system, it maintains the record of it being in the system, and then that's the current firmware that you're able to update to. A nice feature. All right, so we can just let those run in the background, okay? And we're gonna go back to workspace. All right, now while those are running, I'm going to do a basic system layout, all right? So we're gonna work in workspace, design, and we're gonna start with add, all right? So if I wanted to add an amplifier, you see the top menu here. Basically, we're going to select amplifier, and from our list, you're going to see Biamp, and you're going to see PowerSoft. Obviously, PowerSoft is the entire PowerSoft library. Okay, Biamp is the library that we downloaded from the marketplace. So we're going to select Biamp, select ALC, and then you'll see your models populate. So for our purposes here, we're going to choose a 404D. We're going to choose quantity 1. We're not going to rack them. Don't need to do that for now. And then we're going to hit add and close. So now we've loaded a 404D. This is a virtual amplifier. Okay, it's not connected to a physical amplifier yet. So we've loaded a virtual amplifier into the workspace. And for visual purposes, we can make this bigger. We can zoom in here, or we can just hit control and we can scroll our mouse. That's usually what I do. We can make that big so when we're linking channels later, we can see. We'll go from there. So we've loaded a 404D, okay? Let's take a look up here, all right? So window pane left, amplifiers, window pane right, speakers, all right? So we're gonna choose speaker. Now, since we've downloaded the Biamp Community Library, we're gonna go to Community Professional, all right? And then when you click on Community Professional, you will see the options that we have available. So let's just say for quick intents and purposes, we're going to choose some, we'll do R series later. Let's do some I series. Let's do some I series compacts. So let's do a quick little small system here. Let's do a couple 1082s. So IC6 108296, passive full range. And we're actually going to do, 2 of these. All right. Not going to put them in parallel mode. We're not going to put them in high Z mode. I'll show you that later. Not going to use an array group. And we're going to hit add and close. And then you'll see that 2 speakers populate on the right-hand side. Now you can grab these, you can move these around. You can also make the whole view bigger by scrolling up. And you can click on the speaker, and then you see you get on the bottom here, 108296. We can make this one left. And we can make this one right. Got them labeled. All right, so simple system. Let's add a subwoofer. Subwoofers make everything better. So again, speaker, community professional, and stick with I series. We'll do an IS6, and we'll do a single 12 sub. So an IS6112. Now you get to choose your high pass filter. Obviously we can change that once we're in, but we're going to start with an 80 Hertz. And we'll leave that quantity 1. Don't have to touch any of that. Add and close. All right, so we got a single sub. So a little 2.1 system for a listening room. All right, so we added our amplifier. We added our loudspeakers. The next tab on the bottom is link. So we're going to keep going from add to link to match. This is where we're now going to assign the speakers to the amplifier channels. So basically what we've done, we brought in the preset for the 108296. Now, if you hover over this, all right, this is another really nice feature. You'll get the name of the speaker, your model. You'll see that you've chosen passive full range input. and it gives you a 250 watts AES RMS 8 ohm rating. All right, so if you're looking to design a system and you want to know, what kind of power do I need to throw at this? So roughly 500 watts is what this would be. It gives you a nice little choice here. Again, hover over the subwoofer, 700 watts RMS, 8 ohms. It's going to be a little light here because when we bridge this, we'll get 800 watts. Should be a little more, but for our purposes, it'll work just fine. All right, so let's link these. We're going to click on the speaker, and then we're going to click on the amplifier channel. Very simple. So we have now put that preset on channel 1. All right, so ArmoníaPlus will try to follow along. Sometimes it follows along to the wrong thing. We want to move over to the second speaker, and we want to put that on amplifier channel number 2. All right, so we put the left on channel 1 and the right on channel 2, or A and B. All right, so the subwoofer, we want to try to get some juice to the subwoofer, so we are going to bridge channels C and D. So simply to bridge, you click on amplifier channel, hold down Control, click the other amp channel, and you'll see that little bridge icon shows up. I'll do that again so you guys can see it. Goes away, click here, hit Control, bridge icon shows up. So that's how you bridge channels. We're going to hit bridge, and that becomes a single channel. So we've turned this 4-channel ALC 404 into a 3-channel ALC 404 by bridging the last 2 channels. Okay, so we are going to stick our subwoofer on that channel, and good to go. All right, so following in the same format, we went from added amplifiers, added speakers. We went to link. We've linked our speakers to our amp channels. Now we're going to go to match. And look at that. Our amplifiers have been updated. I can go back to the system list. I can see that the 1604D and that 404D that I had earlier are now running the current firmware. All is good to go. Going back to the workspace. Again, following in the form, add, link, match. We know that this is the amplifier we want to connect to. So this gets a little confusing because there's several 404Ds in the rack right now. We're going to choose this one. Well, how do I know which one I want to choose? Well, if I do that, and if you guys could physically see the front of the amplifier is now flashing. So all the LED lights on the front of the amplifier, they wink at you or they flash whenever you select one. So if that's not the right one, it's like, oops, that's not mine, it's this one. That amplifier in the rack will flash as well, all right? So we know this is the one we want to use. And again, add link match, just like we did on the link where we click the speaker, we click the amp channel. We're going to click the amplifier, the physical amplifier, and then we're going to click the virtual amplifier. Now, when I do that, I'm going to get a prompt. Well, what did I do wrong? Synchronization is off. So synchronization is this little button up here. So I'm going to turn that on. And now you see the A+ logo in the top right-hand corner is on. So it means Harmonia can exchange data with the amplifiers. That has to be on in order to write the program to the amplifier. Now, this will sit here and we'll stare at it till we're blue in the face because we don't know what to do. We need to switch screens. So this is where we introduce the option arrow. The arrow between the 2 menus, we call it the option arrow. It seems to take on its own little name, but we like it. When we click that, we're now going to get a prompt for action. So this basically says Harmonia has detected the state of the following devices differs from the desired one. Pre-select read if you want to read from the device, or send if you want to send. So we're writing this program to an unprogrammed amplifier. Naturally, we want to send. If we wanted to read from the amplifier, I'll show you how to do that in a second. We can just pull the amplifier in and we can read from it. All right, so we're going to hit send and we're going to hit apply. And that little candy cane means it's talking. And then we can take a look in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. It says 1 of 1. So we are connected to the 1 amplifier on the network. Now, add link match, option arrow, the magic option arrow. If you click this option arrow and we double click the amplifier, we are now inside the amplifier, okay? So one of the nice things about ArmoníaPlus is you can do multiple things in multiple places. There are a lot more menus down here on the bottom. Okay, config, tune, show. You can access a lot of the features that you can access inside here the same way. I feel it's a lot easier to explain and understand. Click the option arrow, double click the amplifier, go inside, you get a whole new menu of options, okay? This is our snapshot. This is our scheme menu. This basically shows us our inputs. It shows our matrix, okay? Basically goes in line here. This shows any EQ that we've applied. This shows the community professional preset. So this is loaded. If we are programming an amplifier and we see nothing here, okay, that means there's no processing, there's nothing loaded on that amplifier. It'll pass signal, yes, if we apply signal to that channel. But if there's nothing written indicated here, that means the programming did not work. So we didn't link. Basically, in the second step, we didn't link to the output channel. So since we have that here, Community Professional iSeries IC6, what that's done, that's loaded the FIR preset, that's loaded the limiter settings, high pass filters, and any EQ that we've applied from the factory. Okay, so that is your factory preset loaded to the amplifier channel. Okay, source selection. We're going to go into a little bit of detail here because this gets a little tricky. Now we're on a Dante amp, so we have both Dante and analog capabilities. Now, where it gets a little confusing, there are 4 inputs on this amplifier: input 1, input 2, input 3, and input 4. Each input has 4 priorities. All right, so input 1 can have 4 different priorities. Input 2 can have 4 different levels of priority. Same for 3 and same for 4. It gets a little confusing. People will come in here and they'll say, well, I assigned, take off analog 1 here. I'll turn that to none. So like I've assigned Dante 1 to input 1. I've assigned Dante 2 to input 2. I've assigned Dante 3 to input 3. And I've assigned Dante 4 to input 4, right? Well, no, you've assigned Dante 1 through 4 to input 1. Again, a little confusing. I wish there was an indicator or a color or something to make it a little more visible. So basically what you've done is you've created a priority of Dante 1 being your primary, Dante 2, Dante 3, and Dante 4 being your second, third, and fourth active priority, okay? The proper way to do this, inputs 1, 2, 3, and 4. So if we're gonna feed this amplifier, let's say we're feeding this from a Tessera and we're simply doing our output blocks, Dante 1, 2, 3, and 4. We're basically going to make these none. Okay, we're gonna make Dante 1 the priority. If we don't want a priority structure, we can go here to the backup strategy, we can hit force. So that shuts off everything else. So we basically made Dante 1 lock in on input 1. Same thing for here. We can kill analog 2. We don't have to kill analog 2, but we can basically just hit force and it'll automatically go to Dante 2. Channel 3, same thing, hit force, and same thing with channel 4, okay? Don't have to change that, we can just hit force. So we've taken off our input, our backup strategy on the inputs. So input 1 is Dante 1, input 2 is Dante 2, input 3 is Dante 3, and input 4 is Dante 4. All right, gets a little confusing, and I've seen a lot of guys double route, triple route patches, and sometimes the amplifier just figures it out and works. I don't know how or I don't know why, but so it gets a little confusing. There could be a little bit of a latency and some issues later on, but this is the simplified, straightforward way to do it. All right, so once we've assigned our input sources, okay, we're now going to go to the matrix. So this basically takes your input sources and sends them to your output blocks. All your inputs are numbers, so inputs 1, 2, 3, and 4. Outputs A, B, and C. Well, this is a 4-channel amplifier, but remember we bridged channel 4. Okay, so A, B, and C. This is a stereo system, and we want Dante 1 and 2 going to 1 and 2, so left and right, and then we want to mono out the sub. We could click on this, and we could either slide this up or we can double click it and it'll go all the way down, double click it, it'll go all the way up. So we want to mono out the sub, and we want to take off input 3. So basically, on this system, we're not using 3 and 4, we're only using inputs 1 and 2, or I should say we're using Dante inputs 1 and 2. We're sending left to the first channel, sending right, the second channel, and then we're going to mono out the subwoofer to C. All right. So scheme, input priorities, setting the matrix correctly. The next one is advanced EQ. So if there's some EQ settings you want to change, this is basically mainly used for delay and gain shading. Okay. This is where you can apply some parametric filters if you need to. Okay. And then this is the waste filter. Now, why is there a lock screen on there? Well, we looked here and remembered that we did load a factory preset, correct? All right, so when we go back to the waste filter on channel 1, why is this locked? Well, it's locked because we don't want sticky hands touching the EQ that we've set from the factory or the limiters. All right, so when you load a factory preset in ArmoníaPlus, the EQ, which is the FIR filter, and the limiters will be locked. Okay, now you can apply whatever correction or enhancements you want in these other 2 filters, but as far as the flat frequency response that we've established here at the factory, we don't want anyone touching that. Well, how do I know it's there? Well, we can take a look, and if you know the magic code, which most of us don't, hit apply. Now we say I don't know the magic code. There it is. Hit apply again. Now, when we look at that, we will see the FIR group. All right, so there is a factory preset lock on those guys in the factory. Have that app access. So if a consultant or somebody needs to see the curve, we can display the curve for them, but we do not give that out. All right. All right, a couple more things here. Speaker configuration library, you can actually load speaker presets in this way as well. So if I were to type in community, this will bring up all the community presets. They're the same presets that come from the first library in the workspace. Okay. The lock tab I showed you guys. Recalls for presets. If the amplifier is doing multiple presets, you can actually save those presets and do recalls. Most of the time, like I said, these amplifiers are being used for the FIR processing and the power for the loudspeakers. Any kind of preset and zoning and recall like that, we're typically doing it to 0. And then the new page, which they just updated with 2.6, gives you basically a general status of the amplifier. Okay, serial number, the web link address, which is the IP address, power on standby, the mains. Okay, it'll show the network. Okay, obviously this is on the DHCP network. If we did want to switch this to static, we could. We had a static. So basically, after this amplifier has been programmed, IT needs to have this amplifier on a static network. This is where you would switch that setting and put the amplifier on a static domain. Okay. Dante settings, as discussed earlier. Firmware version, we can set latency, we can set our sample rate, and we can activate AES67 mode. Basically, this mirrors everything that we are able to do here in Dante controller. All right. Latency settings, sample rate. Okay. Minimize that. All right. So I'm going to switch over. I'm going to show you guys. We're going to log off this amplifier. So we're going to go back to the home screen, which is just hit the option now, and we'll go back to this. I'm going to bring up my other network. I'm going to log here. Hit OK. And I'll show you some input priorities and how those work in a little more detail. All right, so we're just going to go A+, then go to new. Again, new live sound project. Hit OK. Save current system. No, we're good. If we wanted to, we would save it. And basically, once you write to the amplifier, the program is written to the amplifier. And I'm going to show you how to pull off an amplifier right now. once it's written to the amplifier, the only thing you're saving is the workspace. The workspace is just your file. It's just the settings that are in the workspace. Once it's written to the amplifier, the program is on the amplifier. So you can pull off the amplifier. The only downside of pulling off the amplifier is you don't physically see the speaker icons in the workspace, but it's one of the workarounds we can kind of live with. All right, so let's say we're out in the field or I'm at my desk and we want to pull off an amplifier that we know is programmed and we want to make some changes. All right, so hit clear all again, hit discovery. I'm gonna make sure I get my amplifier. So this is my amplifier at my desk. If I click on this, my lights are flashing. Okay, so I know that's the right amplifier. I'm gonna leave it on the old firmware for now. We don't need to update it, but I wanna show you guys how to drag this into the workspace. So typically, like I said, when we do designs, we're gonna do add our amplifiers, add our speakers. We're gonna do link, link like we did, and then we match virtual and physical. Okay, we're going back on site. The computer I used has been updated. I just need to get into this amplifier. I know this is the one. First, we're gonna make sure that synchronization is turned on, okay? And then we're physically just gonna take the amplifier, which I know this is the one because it's the one highlighted in my rack. It's flashing at me right now, okay? And we are gonna drag that amplifier over to the workspace. Now what that does, it automatically connects to it. So I can make that bigger again. That's my 404D that's sitting at my desk here. When I go to add, link, and match, you see that I have assignments on here. So I have 2 full range speakers and a little baby subwoofer, but the speakers don't show in the workspace. That's the only drawback when you pull from an amplifier. Again, option arrow, double click on the amplifier. Now we're inside the amplifier. So this is basically the system sitting at my desk. And I wanted to show you guys some Dante patches and some priority settings. So basically the way I have it right now, I'm gonna start my Dante stream. You guys will see that come on. Make sure that's turned up. There we go. All right, so you'll see that because I have the Dante selected in the thing, you'll see that it shows my AVI USB dongle as the device, okay? So the way I have this routed right now, I'm bringing in Dante 1 and 2, going left and right, all right, to my 2 little mass speakers. And then I have the same left and right signal being monoed out to the 2 little subwoofers, all right? If I wanted to make this completely mono, I would just make this completely mono. So this gets rid of the stereo separation and basically sending everything everywhere in a mono source. All right, so let's play with this a little. If I'm playing my Dante and Dante is set as my priority, so let's go back to input priorities. Dante is my first active priority. This is not forced, okay? If I were to force it to go all the way down to analog, but we're gonna unforce it and the Dante stream comes back, okay? So I'm gonna play an analog source too, just so you guys can see it work in real time. All right, so you'll see my analog source playing down here. You'll look here, it's taking Dante 1 left, Dante 2 right. These aren't active, but if I stop playing the Dante source, the analog takes over. So basically what happens is this just jumps down to the 4th priority for analog 1. So analog 1 is set as the failover if I lose my Dante stream. So in a perfect world, your Dante stream and your analog feed would be mirrored as a redundant backup, all right? The Dante feed comes back almost instantaneously, all right? So it's just a quick little show and tell of how the input priorities work, all right? All right, gonna jump back over to the PowerPoint real fast. And basically, at this point, we're going to show you guys some real world design examples. All right, so when we do design requests, one of the deliverables that we give to customers and integrators and our Biamp team members, we'll tell them, okay, this restaurant bar with an outdoor patio has, it's got an ALC 404D and it's got an ALC 1604D. It's got 6 DP6s for zone 1, 8 DP6s for zone 2, another 6 for zone 3. It's got 2 EXS8s, again, all tapped at 70 volt for the patio. And then we got 4 zones of subwoofers. They wanted a nice full range blend, good volume for this restaurant and bar location. So we're going to lay this out in Armonia real fast. I think we still got some time. Yep, got plenty of time. All right, so jumping back over to here. Go to the option arrow and just get back to the workspace. I'm gonna kill my system, so even though I like heavy music on at my desk. So if we just click on this and hit delete, double clicked it, and we just hit delete, it'll ask if you want that to go away. Yes. Or you could just go to new, and which one are we gonna pick? Live sound. Don't need to save that one. If we wanted to, we could. All right, so let's go back to our report. All right, report given to me by the Loudspeaker Solutions Group. We got a 404D and a 1604D. So let's add those as amplifiers. Amplifier, Biamp, ALC, 404D, quantity 1. Now we're just gonna hit add. Amplifier shows up. This stays here because we're gonna add another amplifier. 1604D, quantity 1. Now we'll hit add and close. Now we have our 2 amplifiers, all right? So check our report again. Need a bunch of DP6s. All right, so I got 6, 8, and 6. All right, so I got 6 DP6s. They are gonna be running 70 volt, and we're gonna tap each one at 15 watts. Okay, how do we do that? We're gonna go to speaker, community professional. We're gonna go to D series, there we go, and DP6s. All right, it was quantity 6, correct? 6, and we are now going to put these in parallel mode. So when you wire 70 volt distributed systems, you do wire them in parallel mode. This will just display how they're laid out. So we're going to do them horizontal. You do have to match the quantity in the parallel quantity. So quantity 6, parallel quantity has to match to be 6. High Z mode. This turns on the transformer tap. So this now gives us the option to pick our transformer taps. Why is that important? Well, limiting is going to change, okay? And the impedance value is going to change based on what kind of power we're throwing at these. Go back to my report. Let me see, tapping these at 15 watts. Okay, go back to here. So 70 volt, 15 watts. We're going to hit add and close. All right, so now I got a group of speakers representing 6 DP6s, 15 watts at 70 volts each, okay? That's telling me that my line voltage is 90 watts and it's 54.44 ohms. So again, the hover feature really gives you some good information on the speaker line. All right, so that's 6. The next zone was 8. DP6. DP6. Pendant. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's 8. Horizontal, IC mode, that has to match. Make that 8 as well. And those are again 15 watts at 70 volt. Add, and then there was another zone of 6. So I hit add, not add and close. It leaves the menu up. So now I can just adjust here accordingly. 6, high Z mode on, 15 watts. Now I can hit add and close. All right, so who wants to know what I did wrong? Well, those are D6s, not DP6s, or what would currently be the DX-IC6. Okay, well, oops on me. I can just select this, hit delete, and it goes away. I know I need 2 zones of 6, so I can just select this, Control C, Control V, and it'll duplicate it for me. So this is the zone of 8, because I hover over it. That's 8 devices. This is the zone of 6. So I can label these. Zone 1. Zone 2. Zone 3. There we go. All right, go back to my report. I need 2 EX S8s, 70 volt, tapped at full 80 watts. All right, so I need 2 of those. Go back to here. Speaker. Sono EX S8s. I'm going to choose the full range. We need 2 of them. They are going to be in parallel because we are putting them together on a 70 volt line. And we're going to tap those full boogie, 80 watts, 70 volt, add and close. All right. All right, what else do I have? I got a bunch of subwoofers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I got 8 subwoofers. Now, subwoofers are being run in parallel. Low impedance though, each subwoofer I know from my report as well is 8 ohms. So we're going to be putting 2 subwoofers in parallel to make 4 ohm subwoofers. How do we do that? Speaker, Community Professional, Sono EX, and take the sub. All right, so we're going to add 2 of them. Parallel mode, yes. And we're going to hit add and close. So what do I get? I actually get 2 subwoofers that are already pre-configured in parallel, giving me a 4 ohm load. That's exactly what I want. All right, if I added 1 subwoofer and I didn't put it in parallel, it'd be an 8 ohm load. But I want to maximize the 1604, and the customer wants a sub, every 20 something feet. I'm going to do that. Now, how many of these do I have? 4. So I can literally just hit copy and paste. Copy, paste. And paste again. Whoops. No. Copy, paste. There we go. All right, so I got my 4 subwoofers. Now, like we did before, we added amplifiers. We added all of our speakers. Let me double check my report. Yep, got my 404D, got my 1604D. I got all my DP6s. I got my EX-S8 for the patio over here. And I got my subs. All right, zone A, B, C, and D for subs. Perfect. Now, we're going to go to link. And we're just going to start putting speakers on amp channels. So this set of DP6s is going to go on channel 1. That's zone 1. This set of 8 is going to go on zone 2. This is going to be zone 3. This is going to be my patio. That'll be on zone 4. And then our subwoofers, A, B, C, and D. Subwoofer number 1. Now this is a 1604. Is going to run all the subwoofers. 2, 3, and 4. All right, so I've added my amplifiers. I've added all the speakers for the project. I'm now going to match these to the physical amplifiers. Now, we updated a 1604 and a 404D earlier specifically for this reason. So again, I know in my rack, I want this one because it's flashing at me. And I know in my rack, I want this one because it's flashing at me. So 404D, I don't have an AN. I discussed earlier why the ANs are important. You can't link a D to an AN or an AN to a D. So if I had a 404 AN in the system, I wouldn't be able to link to it. It won't let you do it. So remember, you have to link the Dante to the Dante, the analog to the analogs, okay? So I know 1604, I want to link that one to this one. Synchronization is off. Oops, my bad. Turn on yes, please. Thank you. Okay. And then I want to link 404 that I had earlier to that one. Okay, that's good. Okay, what's happening? Switch screens. So whenever you link amplifiers or you match amplifiers from the physical to the virtual, just got to switch to one of these screens. Again, I like going to the option arrow. Then you're going to get your prompt, and we are going to send this to the amplifiers. Get our candy canes. Get going there. And we should be good to go. So 2 of 2, bottom right-hand corner of the screen. We're going to click on the option arrow here, and we're going to check our amplifiers. Now, obviously, the other part of this is going to be, and you see someone has the 100, someone has the, you can see it now. It's actually good that it shows that. The dip switch for the 70 volt is actually turned on, but it's actually on 100 volt. So the dip switch on the back, which is the only dip switch really that you're ever going to touch for 99% of the time, unless you're trying some other features and functions of this, is going to be that 70 volt, 100 volt dip switch. So these are set to 100 volt. I would go to the back of the amplifier and flick this down and make it 70 volt. But there is an indicator on the scheme page that shows that that dip switch is active. The other neat thing, this attenuator, there's blue knobs on the front of the amplifier as well. Those blue knobs are attenuators. This actually shows the attenuation. So if those blue knobs are turned all the way counterclockwise for some reason, you go out to an install and you're not getting any input, turn those blue knobs all the way to your right, and this should be at 0 for full open. All right, so last thing about your commissioning your system, you'll go through, you'll set your input priorities. I'm not sure if this is just gonna be a single mono feed from analog or Dante going to each amplifier. You'll set your input priorities and your matrix. Basically, everything's going to go everywhere. So let's say it's feeding Dante left and right. We just want this to be a big, happy mono system. All right, and then click this, and you'll get into the second amplifier, and you'll see that you now have 2 amplifiers up here on the left and the right, so you can toggle back and forth between them. And then same thing, input priorities. Dante 1 and 2 is fine. Just make this go everywhere. That's fine. And you're good to go. All right. Any gain shading, if you want to bring down the subs, or say you want to bring down the mains in relation to the subs, you can shade 4 channels of output on the 404. Subwoofers, same thing. Any EQ, any flavoring, and of course, double check to make sure your speaker presets are loaded, which they are. All right. Go back to here, go back to there. All right, don't want to keep you guys too late. It is a little after 2, so I'm gonna conclude. Any questions, you guys can reach out to me directly or the support team, support@biamp.com, or if you want to get specific with the Loudspeaker Solutions Group, we are available at communitysupport@biamp.com. Appreciate everyone attending today. Again, any questions, happy to take them. Shoot me an email, shoot the group an email. We'll get you going. All right, thank you all.